Good morning, buongiorno, buenos dias, bon dia, bonjour, buongiorno, kalimera, gyungyadin, sabal khair, boker tov, dobro jutro, dobro utro, bono, buna dimineata, dobri rano, bonjour, and bon dia. Laura.
Just to outshine me, of course, but I love you all the same. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our monthly morning coffee. We joined the third one. We reached the third one, as you know, because mostly all of you participated to the other one. And in this idea we had about the morning coffee, we tried to see what was the situation in our board members. And some of them we had operation last summer and lately. Then we spoke about the challenges mainly related to the protocols. And then we thought that there was something missing on the other side. So we invited today to speak with us and tell us their experience, our expert associate members on the Shorex, just to know how is it going from their side in this, what we call the new normality. And before starting, I'd like to tell you that we need to communicate a couple of things, internal matters. And so please, Nicky, go on.
Yes, the first one is about the participation in the Sea Trade Cruise events in September. So I'm going to ask Emilia to say a few words.
Thank you. Good morning, MedCruise. Thank you, Nicky. Please, a quick reminder to send to Secretariat the replies for your intention to participate in the two Sea Trade events in September. Your replies are really useful for the Secretariat because we need to take decision on the increasing or not of the MedCruise stand size, the equipment that we should rent, the number of the chairs, the tables, etc. So please take 1 minute to reply to the 3 yes or no questions. Thank you.
And the second item we'd like to remind you about is the 2021 edition of our professional development course that our colleague Vega has worked on very professionally as usual. The Secretariat sent out an email to prioritize the topics as we want to meet our members' expectations, obviously, every time we do a professional development course. Results were quite interesting from what we asked, and we want to know more about how the market will be in the future. So here's a brief reminder. The topic is going to be adapting to the new cruise realities. The dates we set aside are Monday, the 26th of April, Wednesday, 28th of April. The two-day event aims to provide content for participants of different professional and knowledge backgrounds, whilst for the first time, MedCruise members will have the opportunity to invite stakeholders that closely work with you at your destinations. For example, municipalities, tourist boards, chambers of commerce, etc. Let me just remind you that at the end of our discussion this morning, there are 2 ways that you can pose questions to our invited guests, or indeed to us if you want. That is by either raising your hand and somebody will see you waving, or the other way, of course, is to use the chat function, please. Okay, Laura.
So here we go. And today, as I was saying before, we have our dearest associate members. We have Janette Reddel from Medov. She's the Shorex manager from Italy and France. Deborah Vega and Ramon Hurtado from Intercruises, Shorex and Port Services, and Ieronymos Georghiou, Executive Director for Seaways, to Shipping and Tourist Services. I will ask Janette to start and just tell us what's going on your side. How are you, adapting to this new reality, this Shorex, and what are, in your opinion, the main challenges? I'm quite sure that all of you are facing the same challenges, but please tell us.
Okay, good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank you. Thank you, MedCruise, Nicky, Laura, for inviting me today. It is a great pleasure to be here. Before speaking about our challenges today, I would like to give you a resumption of all our operations done during last year, just to have an idea of how we are and how we have been in the past months. As we all know, 2020 was the beginning of a difficult and very particular year. In fact, on Friday, March the 20th at around 10 p.m., a phone call changed our lives in Medov. We were informed that Costa Cruises Costa Luminosa was arriving at the port of Savona the next day, and they needed our support to organize transfers for the repatriation of guests and crew members around Europe and non-European. All the team stood up and worked for days and nights without stopping to find staff that would be available to work in the ports and bus suppliers that would help us organize the repatriation, respecting the needs and indications received from the health authorities. Just to give you an example, we were asked to put a plastic division between the driver and the guests. These plastic separés were compulsory during the first period. All our suppliers from all parts of Italy immediately responded to our request and made sure that vehicles arrived at the port of Savona the next day and the next weeks, following all the rules that we received from the government and the health authorities. Those were difficult times because in March 2020, we did not have the knowledge we have today. So we immediately started to work on protocols and organized basically in 4 different points. Our staff needed DPIs. The drivers needed DPIs. Buses needed to be sanitized. A sanitizer needed to be put in the different doors of the buses. During the first period, only 20% of the bus capacity could be used. And for this reason, we needed more buses coming from different parts of Italy. All our suppliers reacted very well. During the following days and nights, Costa organized charter flights for the repatriation of those passengers residing overseas or in European countries that are difficult to reach by bus. We organized transfer to the main airports in collaboration with the airport authorities. The main issue was that the airport police wanted our buses to wait till the departure of the flight, because if in any case the flight was canceled, guests could be accompanied immediately back to the hotel. This happened several times. The transfers for the European citizens were successful thanks to the collaboration with embassies, consulates, border police, medical staff, and all the authorities that helped so that we had no issues. Sanitary passages were created and protocols were really strict, but in each border we had police waiting for our buses, ambulances if needed. And this is how we managed to accompany Romanians, Bulgarians, Germans, French, Spaniards, Scandinavians, and much more back home. Buses accompanied each single person to their doorstep, and all this was organized together with the liaison department and Costa Care team. Medov staff followed each driver from the moment he left the port to the moment he reached destination, so as to be able to inform Costa that guests had arrived back home safely. Slowly, other ships arrived and we had services organized in many ports. For each single guest, For each single guest, our crew members were organized and followed up. We created groups of work that followed all the needs during night and day. I can divide 4 different situations. For all those that had to remain in the hotels, because or asymptomatic positiveness, or because there were no flights at the moment. Our staff accompanied them with phone calls, with balcony meetings, with garden masses. For all those that had to take a flight, we were always in contact with embassies and consulates. For all those that were on the bus transfers, and we followed them continuously. We had to organize relay transfers so that only national vehicles circulated within each country. This means that for guests that had to get to Romania, we had a bus leaving from the port in Italy, driving to the Slovenian border, then got off the Italian bus, walked through the border, got on the Slovenian bus, drove through the Slovenia to the Hungarian border, then got off the bus, passed the border again, and so on to back home. People were afraid, wanted to feel assured. So for each bus, we had a responsible with a phone call, and we kept them company during all the drive. And then finally, for all the people in the hospitals, we had dedicated staff in the lobby of each hotel and hospital, and we kept them company to buy the first aid needs, medicines, clothes, etc., keeping in contact with doctors so as to give guests and Costa continuous information. All this was organized, creating the famous bubble. This means that for each service, we had to be sure that everything was under control. Organizing repatriation was not easy at times. The methods and protocols changed a lot over the weeks and months. We received new auto certifications from our government, new ways of accessing the borders. Initially, Italian buses could cross all the borders, then relay transfers. But the most important value of all this was the great cooperation with other tour operators, including Intercruises that is here today. When one of our buses or some of our buses needed to pass through Spain. So this is something that we learned, and it is very important to remember in the future. We learned that we can do nothing alone. Group work is compulsory. Then the months passed, August arrived, and we started organizing the restart of resumption of operations. First thing we did, speak with John Portelli and Pietro Leoni in Civitavecchia, to Tommaso and Sandro in Naples, to organ and so on in all the different ports, so as to plan together the path that guests would have to walk, let's say, to follow. Inside and outside the terminal, it was a great collaboration. Really want to thank RCT for the great work, especially in Civitavecchia, and all of them in all the different ports. Slowly, we talked with all the ports involved, Trieste, Bari, Sicilian ports, etc., etc. We called in all the staff and organized afternoon courses to study protocols. This was done in different hotels where we had the space to accept all of them seated, maintaining distances. We had tests done with Costa to better understand all the procedures. Distance, masks, and hands clean are the basic details. But then came the study of each terminal for meet and greet and ground services, and the study of each minute in the tours for Shorex. Dividing work into 3 areas. Meet and greet staff needs to be tested each morning before operations. New protocols were learned that included swab tests, waiting areas, informing guests of positivity, and especially close contacts. That's very difficult to manage. Ground staff was also completely tested each morning, and buses were double-checked each morning before their operations. In Shorex, instead, we had guides, escorts, and drivers tested in the morning with swab tests. Extra staff would be included in case of an asymptomatic positive. Bars and restaurants included in the tours were asked to be sanitized, and they closed before our groups arrived and opened specially for us. Tours had to be readapted. So no free time is allowed anymore. No lunch, or lunch is included always for tours with more than 4 hours. So lunch before would have been of free time. At the moment, we can use 50% of the bus capacity to maintain distances, and each guide fills in a list of guests that we need to keep for 15 days in case of any positive status. Probably the most important thing that we learned is that communication and information make a difference. My personal point of view is that if we all respect the rules, we will surely be out of this pandemic situation before we think. We of Medov and CostaMed are working very closely with our clients to help them feel assured and confident to the restart. I would like to thank MedCruise for all the information we receive continuously, the open-minded people that are part of this great organization and that have always helped us during the sea trade events. We of Medov are part of MedCruise and are honored and lucky to be so. So thank you very much.
Janette, thank you so much. Thank you. Clearly, fantastic information there for all of us. Very useful to see how you cope with these, with the situation. And I'm sure that a lot of us have taken notes. And it's incredible how we have to change and adapt in these situations.
And how quickly we have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on now. Let's hear from Intercruises. We're going to ask Ramon Hurtado. Buenos días, Ramon. First of all, to speak to us. Ramon is Intercruises Transformation and Global Operations Strategy Manager. So, Ramon, we'd like to hear from you, and then obviously from Deborah as well, to see how you have all coped and are coping and working with this situation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Laura and Nicky. Thank you so very much. And thank you, MedCruise, for organizing this. Bon dia a tothom, as we say here in Catalonia. And I would just echo most of the things that Janette just mentioned. I mean, that this news back a year ago that we thought it was going to be like 15 days, 1 month maybe, and it's already a year. So our lives have changed dramatically. And the story is more or less the same as for Janette, that we received a call. We were just, I mean, we were monitoring since, you know, we are doing operations, we're handling operations globally. We were seeing that back in January 2020, we already had some challenges and issues in our Asian ports, that ships were going diverted, some nationalities were restricted from boarding. So we kept a close eye on it, and we saw it coming then when it went to Janette's territory, it went to Italy, then in Spain, so like, oh, it's really getting closer now. So we prepared a group in order to be ready for whatever might come. And at the end, we realized it came. And the story is the same. I mean, we started supporting all the cruise lines, all our clients in all our ports to stop operations. It was really difficult times. Almost a year ago. It was really difficult and repatriate guests and crew. I mean, with ODCs, like she was doing with buses going from one border to border, we had exactly the same experiences. We also had to disembark a whole ship in a Navy port in Mexico, making sure that everyone was safe with all the equipment that at that time we didn't know exactly what was requested and what would be needed. So we put everyone in astronaut suits, kind of, drivers and the staff, because we didn't know exactly how the illness was spreading. So long story short, when we had to stop everything, we learned on the way that one thing would not fit all. What was happening in Spain was different exactly to what was happening in Italy. We already saw it in Australia. We saw the US was a completely different story. So we started planning is like, okay, it's been tough to stop and assist our clients to repatriate all the crew and all the guests. It will be tougher to resume operations at that time, hopefully within a month, couple of months. So we are lucky that we're part of a bigger group, which is the TUI group. And we have an amazing team of health and safety and security. So we contacted them directly saying, it's like, listen, this is what has happened. In the cruise industry, they had the same challenge. We have the same challenges on the what we call the regular tourism and source markets, and exactly the same with TUI aviation. So we created a group, working group, in order to start preparing what we thought could help resume operations as soon as needed. So we start working with our protocols, with all the inputs from TUI aviation, from the hoteliers, the own hotels that we have, from the source markets, I mean, the destinations in the UK, Germany, what they thought were, and our expertise in destination management for both regular tourism and the cruise industry. And again, we saw that one protocol or one set of protocols would not fit all. It was completely impossible to make sure that specific topics would apply to all the guests in any port at any certain stage, because we also that it was different according to the timeframes. So we built up what we can, our first set of guidelines, we call them guidelines on how to operate while we were still stopping, because there were some cruise lines that were still trying to repatriate the crew. It was really tough. But also how would we start resuming operations, not only from meet and greet at the airport and so on. Just already thinking is like, whenever we resume operation, we will need to change the whole concept from how do we meet them at the airport, how we transfer them to the port, how are we going to keep social distance, increase hygiene, how we sanitize the buses, between one service and the other. These were one of the topics. It's like, because we needed to find the balance between what was the healthiest possible, but practical at the same time. It was, I mean, there was plenty of things that they were not practical to do unless there was lots of logistics and coordination. So we came with our first set that was obviously social distancing, increased hygiene, masks, and so on. But what we decided at this stage is that we would not come with a fine set. We would always align to whatever was the local legislation in that place and at that current time. We saw happening that what was useful one week at the very next week was completely opposite in the same port. I mean, in Barcelona, for instance, last week we could not go out to a bar until 1 p.m. Now it's until 5 p.m., but maybe next week will change again. We were just trying to multiply this because in all the 400 ports that we call that we operate globally. So what we said is, first we're going to align to local legislation. We have our own minimums standards. If our minimums are above the local legislation, we will go with our own. If local legislation is more strict, we go with the local one. But with a third input, it's like cruise lines were already talking about developing their own protocols. So we planned that we would have like a three points of view: is local legislation, our global view, plus the cruise line. So we would always go with the more strict. This takes us until nowadays, when we resume, nowadays it's July 2020, when we resume operations. We're happy to operate operations. We started in France with really small operations with the Ponan, and then we moved on to Croatia with Ponan and Mystic. Then we went to Greece. So we have been lucky that we have not stopped operations from ground side. I mean, from port operations, obviously, I think that I cannot imagine any port operations, any port agent that has stopped, because we have been assisting the ships while they were even in cold layups. But we have been operating shore excursions and meet and greet and transportation in France, Croatia, Greece, the Canaries, and also in Singapore, doing turnarounds for Genting and for Royal Caribbean. So what we did is, like, when we were just getting ready to start operations, we were contacting the cruise line, or we were just aligning with the cruise line and the local port authorities and every stakeholder that was going to be involved in that certain operation, even if it's us or at that stage our competitors. And then we just fine-tune the operations port by port, ship by ship, because it's not the same 3,000 passenger ship, although it's with 1,000 passengers now, than a smaller ship. So we aligned all the operations. We fine-tuned we fine-tune them port by port, ship by ship, to make sure that each and every single detail of the operation is coordinated accordingly with the authorities, with our colleagues, and our competitors, and with the cruise line. And nowadays, what we are just working is, like, we have lots of best practices and lessons learned. We have seen that things that were working in Greece did not work exactly the same in the Canaries. Things that were working in Singapore, we had to switch immediately because it was not expected. So we are sharing these best experiences and these lessons learned. We have built like a package. Deborah calls it the package. And we're just working on it and keep it updated. We have included not only the protocols, but on prevention, but what if, or how, not what if, is how if. We know that sooner or later we're going to have some cases, not big outbreaks, but we're going to have cases here and there. How are we going to isolate the guest or the crew? How are we going to communicate? We just found that communications, as always, it's paramount. We can solve everything just communicating through ourselves. And also we just built even speeches on our buses on how to communicate to the guests, which are the local regulations that apply today in this port. So that there's lots of best practices and lots of things that we wanted to share with all the cruise lines and with the authorities, and that we will keep sharing. As Janette said, is like, we can only move on if we learn and we coordinate amongst all the stakeholders, regardless if it's competitor, non-competitor. I mean, in this state of emergency, kind of, there's no competitors.
Yes, I agree with you. And thank you, Ramon. You were really It was really interesting to hear from you because you had a sort of puzzle of information to analyze and then put them all together. And I think that from a certain point of view, also the ports are dealing with the same, because we are following the evolution of the EU gateway, health gateway guidelines, and then the cruise lines are theirs, and then the local governments, and then the national governments are even different in some regions, in some countries. So it is quite difficult, and to hear, to listen from your stories, it's definitely something that is going to help us. And I was also, focusing on what you said, applying the strictest protocol. I think it's the key, and about what Janette was saying before, also the collaboration is essential today. I wanted to ask Deborah instead, if you can add something. How did the Shorex, just a few words, how did the Shorex change? I'm not talking about, of course, the protocols like the bubbles, we heard it from, but did you have to choose different excursion, different paths, and what was it? How did you choose?
Well, thanks, Laura. I hope everyone's doing well, first of all, despite the circumstances. And thanks to Nicky and Amelia, and of course you, Laura, and all MedCruise for inviting me to join you for coffee. That's great. Thanks a lot. That's true. Ramon mentioned Intercruises has been operating off and on now during the pandemic and since July, and it's not been easy. But we have really been fortunate to count on a lot of great partners, ports, authorities, our team, and of course the cruise lines, all working together to make it happen. And it's not been easy, and that's the reality. I guess the main factor behind that has been the ever-changing levels of restrictions, sometimes from one day to the next. And as you can imagine, that puts a huge strain on planning and the operation itself. Plus, it does confuse guides, our teams, and the guests. So with this coffee, we'd just like to hope that we can share a few experiences, sort of lessons learned, and maybe it might give some help for others who haven't restarted yet. So Ramon did talk about the protocols and that we prepared in order to help the partners in the destination get ready for the resumption. And needless to say, as you know, the cruise lines have their own protocols too. And in most part, many of them fit already very well with ours. And we did spend, as Ramon already mentioned, a lot of time working on those to have some harmony. Sometimes the protocols that the cruise lines might want to implement in a destination couldn't be applied, whether it was for data control reasons or for others, right? But as you already asked me, Laura, there, with regards to the preparation of the product, from the very beginning, we tried to anticipate the market trends with this new normality and what could be in the future a great guest experience. So I think the first thing our team contemplated was what was going to be the new travel trend expectations that might impact on the cruise industry, where we might see a resumption first, perhaps in the domestic market. And I see now that that's the case in the UK, as you all know. I think several cruise lines have already announced UK-only cruising for some kick-off sailings this summer. I think for guests, they would be looking for trust and reassurance, where crowded and busy places are going to be avoided. Hygiene and sanitary measures, of course, have great importance. The market analysis, though, was suggesting that there would be a shift to more digital experiences and increased awareness of maybe environmental impacts. Without doubt, a huge focus on the great outdoors, nature, and probably a surge to find alternative outdoor venues. So in addition, as an operator, we understood that ever more top of the list with that was going to be cancellation policies, revised, and later release dates. So our categories, target categories, pinpointed this great outdoor segment. So revising offers for national parks, cycling, kayaking, and beach, whether this was an activity or a real leisurely day at the beach. And who wouldn't want to have a bit of vitamin E and a vitamin B, right? So, of course, this wouldn't have been possible with what would be a pre-COVID beach transfer. So finding the right locations and venues that would offer socially distanced sunbeds to our guests on a regular basis was not always as easy as you might think, right? So needless to say, there was a smaller group focus too, of course, given the desire to avoid crowds. Once it became apparent that participating in a shore excursion in order to depart the ship and enjoy the destination was put into place, we quickly understood, as did the cruise lines, the need perhaps for shorter orientation tours. That was going to be key. So guests who normally have visited the destination independently, unless they already visited several times, of course, are not usual fans of the classic 4-hour guided tour. So for us, being able to put in place multiple departures of shorter tours was important. What else? So we worked very closely with the cruise lines, adapting all the programs as much as possible to take into account those new trends. And we worked on a traffic light system for the tours. So we would have green for no problems and all elements met the safety criteria. Then we would have amber for those who had maybe one or more elements that would either need replacing due to closure or too many restrictions. And then red, where it would be currently impossible to operate that tour. And then what we did was we began the collaboration with the venues to resolve the situation of the ambers, find ways to move them up to the green category. In case we couldn't, we would maybe start the investigations to find a substitute for maybe those activities or venues that were in the amber. It was a live document and we found it worked really well to understand the changing situation. Unfortunately, we did have some incidents where a supplier had decided not to reopen or a venue remained closed. So they were challenging factors, right? We had
lots of plan Bs.
Absolutely, yeah. And so we had, of course, the opposite. One day the venue, like you're saying, is open and then the next day it'd be closed due to a change in the restriction levels. In some cases, we even reduced down the number of experiences on offer to simplify the operation to avoid further segmentation. So we would have focusing on those venues that were less likely to have significant changes from one day to the next. We did have great collaboration and everyone joining forces to find solutions to make a safe environment. And in some cases, we even managed to get exclusivity for the cruise guests. And that really, of course, helps. As already mentioned, I think from my colleagues, the shore excursion participation is higher than pre-COVID. However, the ship's occupancy is a good percentage less. So in the end, more or less, the shore excursion participation numbers in total are more or less the same as pre-COVID. What's not normal, though, is the amount of coaches and guides required for the same number of guests. So in many instances, whilst in some destinations, the percentage fill capacity on transport is 100%, the cruise lines, as Janette mentioned, are only perhaps filling between 50 and 80%. Then the situation with the guides, where an additional guide is required due to restrictions on group sizes. So depending on the alert level of the destination, the maximum group can be maybe 20 and then the next destination 20 or 50. So we can find sometimes 2 guides with the group or a step-on guide at the venue to supplement. So in general, as the season's not in full swing, guide availability has been good, but sometimes there have been challenges to find the right number of guides with certain languages when we've maybe had the occasional challenge. That sounds really lucky, I know, with more than one ship in port, and it has happened. So perhaps maybe moving forward, we need to consider guide availability and have regular discussions between all the stakeholders, port operations teams, tour operators, to just make sure that we really can deliver the best services in all of the ports.
That's
another
a really
thing
good,
that we
really good message, Deborah. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we need to move on.
Sorry, I know I talk a lot.
Don't worry, it's actually fascinating, and I'm sure everybody's, that's really good. That's what we wanted. This is what we like.
Sure.
We like you to talk, but we're going to move from one end of the Mediterranean to the other now and say good morning to Ieronymos. How are you today? And Ieronymos, could you share your experiences as well, please, from your perspective?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to see you all and have the opportunity. I would like to thank MedCruise for this morning coffee event. It's a great opportunity to share thoughts with colleagues and experience on cruise operation during coronavirus pandemic, as well as to change views on the prospects of a restart the cruise, the required actions and procedures. I won't go into the details the previous ones got. I will tell you a general overview of the situation we faced in Greece. I guess you know the details. I would like to start from the beginning. 2020 was expected to be a fantastic season for us. The cruise in Greece and the East Med generally was a traditional cruise destination, faced a declining development during the last decade, caused due to various factors, as you know, for example, geopolitical stability, economic crisis. However, 2020 was looking to be the beginning of a new and prosperous era for cruise in the area. For this reason, we were all very enthusiastic. Everybody was involved in this industry, ports, agents, providers, spending hours of work and cooperation, and we gave great efforts on preparation. The first news about the coronavirus seemed so distant. We couldn't believe that this will ever touch us. It was something happening in the Far East and will end there and will be something temporary. Couldn't believe this will be in front of us in a short while. When the problem came closer, it was very challenging periods that involved port and state authorities as well as local communities. Were very reluctant to the possibility of having a cruise ship in their port, even in the anchorage, even without the passengers. I mean, we faced a very, very difficult situation being the representatives / the owners in the area, bringing the vessel, our vessel, to the community, and actually were facing like we are bringing the disease in the isolated place that it was COVID-free. It was very strange. Gradually, we all realized the environment, the new environment, and the right steps and action were in place in order to restart. We are quite lucky because Greece was among the top options for a safe restart. In this respect, we got into preparation and managed to start operations in mid-September. We were representing Costa in Greece, and that was very good for us because we were very much involved into the restart. We went through the required procedures and directives. We fulfilled and set protocols with the involved health and state port authorities. We became familiar with new terms like interoperability, contingency, safe port, positive case management, and all this. In these attempts, some ports had decided to have a neutral position. They were positive in welcoming cruise ships, but at any case, they didn't want any involvement to the positive case possibility. They just want the benefits of cruise without any risk. At the same time, some other ports stood up and helped the maximum the cruise lines and the local representatives, and together we fulfill the requirements and they set themselves as safe ports. Of course, I have to thank Heraklion for this because it was the port that helped us a lot and became safe port for all the cruise lines came in Greece. We work all together, agents, cruise lines, ports, state health authorities, and we obtained that what a few months ago was impossible, the cruise calls with passengers in Greece. Of course, this first calls was with very few passengers, but it was a good beginning. This attempt didn't come without the problems. We had positive cases in almost every cruise, but protocols were well in place and all were managed with success. And what was a model that all involved want to test was something that we wanted to have positive cases. It was a new reality. And things were ongoing for about 2 months. As you all know, in the second wave of the pandemic in November 2020, forced the cruise lines to suspend cruises. Now we're again before the new beginning. We don't know when exactly this will be, but we are all sure that this will happen sometime in mid-2021, and this will be for good. We are all wiser. We have comprehended the volume of the pandemic, and we do not take anything for granted anymore. We have the experience and the knowledge of 2020. We have the vaccine and the assurance that the pandemic will end. I am optimistic that things will soon be improved, that for the benefit of all involved, and especially the cruise community. It is a fantastic, most dynamic sector of shipping and tourism with tremendous potentials. I believe this. Cruise will recover and come back stronger and lead the way of sustainable development. And in this case, we don't have anything to share. We don't have competition, as the previous said. We are a united community, and we want all the same goal, that there is a restart of cruises, and this is very important, and I believe that soon we'll succeed.
Thank you, Ieronymos. Your message is really important for us as an association. In fact, we ourselves had to adapt the association to this new reality, and we try to do our best. And this is one of the things that we're trying to do with the morning coffee. And hearing from you really makes me feel that there was a lot of work. My God, and there's still a lot of work to do. But today, and I thank you for sharing all your experience. I want to all to know that apart from the protocols and the challenges and the things, you know, working as an agent, as also Ramon was saying, they never stopped. Also with the layup of the ships in the ports where the crews were not operating, there is a very nice and let's say resilient story that one of our port members is going to share, because it's a very good news for all the members, and it's a very good example. And I will ask please Silvia Coppolino, head of the promotion department of the Port of Taranto, to take the floor if she hears me. I think she's there.
Hi Laura, can you hear me?
Yes. Can we see Silvia on the screen as well? I'm asking the secretariat to pin you with us so everybody can see you.
We can see her.
Good. Thank you, Silvia. Go on.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Laura, and all the friends in MedCruise for giving us this opportunity. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Silvia. I'm in charge of International Affairs, Promotion and Marketing Department for the Network Authority of the Ionian Sea, in a simpler way, the Port of Taranto. I work together in the promotional department with my colleague, Cristina. Hi, Cristina.
Hello, MedCruise members. Hi.
Hello, Cristina. Hi.
Good morning, everyone.
Now, just a few words. Taranto is a young port in the cruise scene, and up-and-coming destination. 2017 was in fact considered as the launch year for us in this sector, in this enticing and exciting sector. This happened because Taranto was chosen as a port of call in the itinerary of Marella, used to be Thomson. And the feedbacks and the responses were immediately positive in 2017. So first of all, we have to say thank you today and always to Marella and Intercruises, as we are grateful and appreciative that they have believed in Taranto, venturing and trusting on this off the beaten track destination since 2017. Now, the Port Authority and the old city have taken a major commitment in promoting the cruise business growth in the Port of Taranto in latest years, with the objective to encourage and, let's say, stimulate a new challenging form of development for the whole territory in accordance with the port strategy defined in the port's master plan, the operational master plan for 2020-2022. So the cruise traffic trend foreseen for the next years, not considering the after effects of the unhappy interlude of 2020, and the startup of a new collaboration with a major terminal operator, I mean Global Ports Holding. So the forecasts on the one hand and the partnership with GPH on the other are both factors that enable the port city of Taranto and its whole ecosystem to think positive and to work for a sustainable management of cruise traffic. Now, in this frame, the recent news of MSC calling at Taranto for the current cruise season 2021 is really a success for us. I think that in any case, it's a success when MSC decides to call at your port, I personally think. But in our situation, it's an outstanding goal. I have to say that during the autumn-winter season 2020, the port has provided the necessary support during layup of MSC and Costa vessels in Taranto, MSC Opera and Fantasia, and Costa Favolosa. So we had the chance to demonstrate the efficiency of port services and the synergy among port operators. And the pandemic revealed to be an opportunity. So now I come to your question, Laura, what we have done so far. We have never given up believing in the potential of our city, even when we realized that the calls in 2020 were to be cancelled, and all the efforts and the hopes and enthusiasm were going to fade away. So we have been using the downtime, keeping on investing in communication activities to spread the necessary information and updating about the local development among potential stakeholders, also thanks to MedCruise constant support during recent months. We have kept going on with the works for infrastructures, renovation of the quay and the construction of a new building, a portion of which will be dedicated to cruise terminal. We have kept working to finalize the contract, the procedure for contracting the concession to GPH. And another point is the creation of a new concept of Taranto as a port city and no longer a city with a port. And that's
basically what you are telling us, and what I really liked about your positive story is that fortune helps the bold. You were already working on that very hard, and then there was this opportunity, because what's really nice about your story is that the pandemic was an opportunity, and that's why I asked you to share it with our colleagues, because we want everyone to know that there is also this opportunity, especially for smaller ports or newest ports, actually, not smaller, because it's not the dimension of the port, but it is a dimension in the cruise market. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I think we are about to finish, Nicky.
Yeah, thank you, Silvia. That was very interesting and glad to hear. I just want to come back to our guests, and if you can, in say 30, 40 seconds, just give us a resume of your experience and perhaps one of the most challenging items or points that you want to make. Janette, could we come back to you and just give us a roundup of your experience and what you think is going to happen going forward?
Thank you, Nicky. Well, I think that probably we have to understand that guests are different. They are willing to be protected. They are willing to understand that we are following all the procedures. They are obviously willing to be very, very completely assured and, let's say, followed continuously. So we have to work for this as a tour operator. As a port agent, we have been working so much in all the different ports. I only want to thank all the different port authorities and all the different elements and government and whatever that help us to follow and continue keeping ourselves happy to help our cruise lines.
Thank you, Janette. Ramon, a little summing up from you, if I may.
Yes, I mean, what all this is showing us is that we are a resilient industry, that together we are stronger, and that we will still need to keep adapting and changing and being able to reinvent ourselves as many times as needed, and that working together will make it happen. Otherwise, it's not a one-man show.
Thank you. Deborah. Who was giving us some very interesting information. Sorry I interrupted you, but time catches up.
No problem, Nicky.
Maybe a little bit more of a summing up from you.
Well, I just think probably from my perspective to consider that what the restrictions are today may not be the same tomorrow, and most surely will not be the same in 6 weeks. So in short, we need to be ready and most importantly, agile and flexible. So I hope it helped this coffee, planning for the future. We're going to keep our fingers super crossed and glued together that we have a successful summer season ahead. And I really want to take the opportunity to thank our fantastic operations team on the ground in France, Greece, Croatia, Singapore, the Canary Islands, and for all the help and community spirit that all the stakeholders have shown in delivering great guest experiences despite all of the restrictions. So good luck, Medports.
Thank you. Ieronymos, a close note from you.
Yes. I believe that we should be ready. I don't want to go into details. Whatever it's said, it will be fulfilled from us. We want to work. Everybody wants to work. We realize how important it is to have operations. And we don't know the protocols yet. I believe they will be finalized within the next weeks or 1-2 months. And soon we're going to have operations, and we have to work together without competition for the common goal. That's it. And I'm sure that we will succeed. And in 1 year now, we will be thinking about these meetings, and it will be a small parenthesis, and we face the future. Okay.
Thank you, Ieronymos, and thank you all. It was really, really interesting. Someone is asking from the floor to know more about the Shorex perspective, Deborah. I know we don't have any time left, but as we all say, we are here. Please suggest us what you need to know. So probably, I mean, we can also, go deeper into this and try to organize a morning coffee, especially on this subject, because you know, destination adaptation, sorry for the trick, it's probably one of the most challenging and interesting also outcomes of this pandemic. And before we all leave and go back to our duties in offices, let me remind you about to save the date for the professional development course, as we said at the beginning. It will be again Monday the 26th of April and Wednesday the 28th. 2 days, very interesting, and you can also bring someone with you from the tourist board, I don't know, regional agencies for tourism, whatever, whomever actually you think it will be useful to bring with you in this special situation. Don't hesitate. And before we leave, Anya, I think we're ready for a picture.
Yes,
Smile.
let's do that.
Smile, everybody, please.
Open your cameras. Okay, 1, 2, smile. Next page. If you are here, please open your camera. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Okay, that's
Thank you.
One more?
Oh, one more, okay.
God, we are many people.
Good, that's good.
1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, that's it.
Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today.
Thanks.
And we hope to see you very, very soon. Again, this is a place for you. So whatever it comes to your mind, whatever you need to know, whatever you want us to go deep into, please write, text, tell us. Okay?
Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.